crush is subsided. We've all had a chance to get a little bit of sleep and figure out who we are, and it's time to assess the wine. So 2021 vintage here in barrels. It's mid-November, thinking about Thanksgiving, wine, turkey, relaxation, fireplace, family. And it's a great time to visit our wines. So they're young wines, very brilliant red, still a little bit turbid. They've been in barrels now for several weeks. And it's a great time as the wines are starting to settle out and the CO2, carbon dioxide, which is natural as a byproduct of fermentation, is starting to subside. So it's a great time to assess the wine. It's still a little early, but been doing this a lot of years, so I kind of know what I'm doing, or I think I know what I'm doing. It's a wonderful world between these ears. So anyway, it's a great time to assess the wines, the quality. You know, I've got a database, a history, a background with my vineyard and having made wine for so many years, and so I'm calling on that right now. So what I'm looking for is not, you know, how many kind of violet flowers and cherries and berries are in there. What I'm looking for most of the time when I'm tasting wines is flaws, balance, looking for problems, right? So curative is always better than preventative, or preventative is always better than curative, shall I say. So that's just life. So we never want to get into a situation where we've got issues. Winemaking is not an absolute science. It's not like baking a cookie. I mean, you're working with living organisms here, bacteria, yeast, organisms, yeast and bacteria that want to ruin your wine. So if you have a wine that smells like what's ethyl acetate or what we call volatile acidity, you know, wine that can be, is a byproduct of a fermentation gone sideways and bad yeasts and bacteria, primarily bacteria, chewing on the sugar that might be left from a stuck fermentation or a slower, sluggish fermentation, or not topping up your vessels. So these barrels are, they're porous, so they evaporate, and we need to get in here and top the barrels up frequently, even more frequently right after harvest. So this is a time, in my opinion, when things can really go sideways on you. You're tired, you want to kind of get back to your desk and, you know, relax a little bit, but the wines, as they go in a barrel, they shrink up quickly because there's a lot of CO2 in them. They actually cool down in the cellar, and there's a lot of, can be a lot of ullage, and the barrels are sometimes first time filled, so they're not fully hydrated. The barrels absorb liquids, so we need to top them back up. So this is one of the other processes that we go through, so this time of year. I was not talking about fruit characters, but there's a ton of fruit in this. This is from my Orchard House Vineyard Estate. It's been in barrels about 3 weeks now, block 1A and 1B, so it's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir that was planted in 2000, clone 115, and then we have block 2, which is clone 114. So 2 different clones in the estate Orchard House Vineyard going into our Iterum wines. I guess I should have led with that. Iterum's my new label. If you're looking at this on Instagram or on our website, you'll have known that already, but Iterum is a Latin word for again, once more, afresh. So it really represents Joe Dobbes after 35 vintages, starting in Europe in the 80s, going full circle, slowing down, making small quantities of wine, just really focused on high quality, organically grown, very, very little intervention into the wine, still using some techniques and some little tricks that Joe Dobbes has learned over the years to make really what I want to make, and really an expression of the vineyard. So letting the vineyard speak for itself. We all talk about that, but I mean, literally very, very little intervention. So 115 is a genetic clone, as is 114. So these are some of the newer Dijon clones that came into Oregon in the late 80s. Shout out to David Adelsheim for really being the pioneer on that, getting to Europe and bringing over some of these Dijon clones from the Institute in Dijon, the nursery. So 114 literally represents probably a row number. It's not Schmedlap, Smith, or whatever. There is a clone called Wädenswil and Pommard that are parts of, from Europe. Germany, there's Wädenswil. So we're here in the cellar. It's mid-November, and assessing the young wines for Iterum, my new brand, which represents me really going full circle as a winemaker. So I started in the mid-'80s, took a couple years off, 17 and 18 vintages, and bought my dream property, Orchard House Vineyard Estate, located on the western bench of the Uliamity Hills. And so now we're making some, I think, really exciting wines. But here today talking about clones. So we have two different clones of Pinot Noir and two different clones of Chardonnay in our Orchard House Vineyard Estate. And for those of you who don't know what a clone is, all things in nature mutate. Human beings mutate, flowers mutate, grapes mutate. Pinot Noir in particular is very precocious. It mutates often and quickly in the evolutionary scale of genetics, actually, so much quicker. I've actually seen a Pinot Noir, a Pinot Gris vine in the vineyard that's half Pinot Gris and half Pinot Noir. One arm coming off the same trunk, Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, or Pinot Blanc, which is a cousin relative of Pinot Noir as well. So anyway, this is 115. You can see it in the barrel here from our estate, and then we have 114. So think of a Macintosh and a Red Delicious or a Gravenstein apple, right? They're apples, right? This is Pinot Noir, but they mutate. So with these characteristics that they take on, with the mutation is maybe higher acids, low acids, ripen earlier, smaller berries, more concentration of skin to juice ratio. I'm throwing a bunch of things out here, but genetically they different. They become different. They vary over time. And literally, with these two clones in my vineyard, same guy, same winemaker, same indigenous yeast. I'm not going to use the word natural. All yeasts are natural, but sometimes they get cultivated and made, commercially available. We're cultivating the yeast in the vineyard, the microbiome. So the microbiome is the kind of collective word for all the yeasts and bacteria, and throw another word out there within that, terroir, French word. But that's another discussion. I digress. 114, 115. So the wines are genetically different, Pinot Noir. They ripen about the same time, but the 115 produces wines that are more red in fruit, more red fruited, where the 114 produces wines that are low in acid and more black and blue fruit. So what do I mean by red or black and blue fruit? So think of raspberries, cranberries, strawberries, red cherries versus boysenberries, loganberries, plums, prunes, blueberries. I love them all. But I'm really lucky with this vineyard. I didn't plant the vineyard. It was planted in 2000 by some really good friends of mine, Greg and Ann Koss, that I had made wines for a number of years. And then with my other winery, we leased that vineyard for years, and I got to know the vineyard really well, and we bought our dream place, my wife and I. So I'm really lucky. I've got these two clones out there. I make the wines the same, and they turn out completely different. So you've got the yin and the yang. So we do individual single clone block by block, clone 115, block 1, clone 114, block 2 bottlings, and that's what we have to offer. So you can really see from the same place, from the same piece of ground, same soil, same aspect, slight variations, how different these wines are.